Lincoln, and welcome to Randi on the Road. We're at the Northeast Innovation Center here in Northeast Fort Wayne, Indiana, and my guest today is LeeAnn White. And you've probably seen LeeAnn White around town at city council meetings, at networking groups, at board meetings, but LeeAnn doesn't have a title. LeeAnn's loving title from all of us who know her is community advocate, because no one wants to change the heart of the city more than LeeAnn White. And everyone who knows you with a heart of trust, and we know what you're about. So I'm thrilled to be able to bring you, my friend, to the community. And believe me, this was not her forte. I had to fight with her to get her to do this, but you need to meet LeeAnn White. So LeeAnn, first of all, I want to tell everybody that you have an awesome historic home here in Fort Wayne. Mm-hmm. You have a heart for the city, and just tell me where this all evolved. I mean, when did this start to come upon your heart that we need to help the city get back to being our city?
You know, if I had to go back, I was thinking earlier this morning that I grew up in a little town of Graybill, and my dad was the chief of the fire department, and back then it was volunteer. But my dad built into me a public servant's heart that I did not know that I had. But in 2007, the Graybill area decided that they wanted to do a memory garden, and they wanted to honor all of the past chiefs. And my dad was where they began. And so our family was invited out to Springfield Fire Department. And as I sat there at sunset, as they were honoring my dad, I was aware that, for lack of a better word, I think it was the Holy Spirit that spoke to me and said, "I have given you your father's heart." And it was then that I realized that my life's calling was in the area of a public servant. And then, of course, I found it very interesting. You mentioned our historic home, that when I met my husband in September of 1989, that I knew that he owned this old firehouse that he had bought abandoned from the city of Fort Wayne. And it was vacated in 1972 when the riots almost destroyed our neighborhood, and that the National Guard defended our neighborhood from the roof. And so I began to pick up on this historic piece of my community, and found out that my dad had attended many firefighters' meetings in the building that I call my home.
Oh my goodness, I had no idea. I learn more about you every time we talk. And there's a lot to learn about LeeAnn. So I met you through a networking group that you attended. Whatever possessed you to just start attending meetings?
Probably some questions that I asked someone along the way. But I think I was starting to work with an organization called the Crossing School, and they were wanting to connect to community leaders who would have a passion for youth. And I had a cousin named Rodney Delagrange who told me that there's this networking group, and there's a gentleman in there by the name of Dan Surface, and all he knew was that it was called Exit 25, and they met at Georgetown Square, and he said, "I think you ought to go check out that networking group." So it took me a year to get enough courage to do that, but that was how I got there.
And we love you, and we support you. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You bring something to the networking groups. You bring that piece of the community to the local networking business owners that we don't always get to see, because you do live right in the heart of the city. But you also have the ability to walk into a county building and they know who you are. You walk up to a city official and they know who you are. You always have the ear of the people who are important, but you have the heart of the city, and they know that. So you have pretty much decided to put together a group, and we're looking for a group of people who really want to bring the heart of the city back. Mm-hmm. And that is no easy feat. It really isn't, because there's a lot of negativity. There's a lot of people who are kind of sitting on the outside watching in to see what's going to happen, but they don't really know how to join. So with your permission, I think that we should maybe open the video up for some questions to see if we can have some people who are interested in maybe helping us regain the heart of the city and bring the heart of the city back to Fort Wayne. Maybe mention on the YouTube in comments how you want to help, who you are, if you're interested, and LeeAnn and I will get together with you or give you a call, because we do have several people that are great community advocates, but nobody that I think is as passionate about you. You have a passion that just surpasses everybody that I've seen. Where does that passion come from?
You know, several years ago, I met a gentleman. He was an influential businessman, and I was talking to him, and he sent me an email, and he said, LeeAnn, he said, you really have a passion for at-risk youth. And it was then that I realized that, yes, I do. But I think my passion began when I met my husband, and he told me that he felt like God had given him this firehouse, and that we would be salt and light to the inner city. And so then I began to ask myself, what does it mean to be salt, and what does it be light? And I never really had a yard to mow, because my front yard is Maumee Avenue in Indiana Tech, and my backyard is Oak Street, which is concrete. And so when my children were younger and they wanted to play outside, I had heard an interview in WBCL about who speaks for God, and it was through Jay Wallace. And he made the comment that more people are won to the Lord through the use of a lawnmower than any other tool. So since I wanted exercise, I wanted to be outside watching my kids, I told my husband I needed a lawnmower, that I wanted to start mowing my neighbors' yards. Well, I became known as the gardener of the neighborhood, who mowed lots for free, who pulled the weeds from my house all the way down to McMillan Park, just because I love the community. And I was just being obedient to a prompting within me. I wanted the exercise. I wanted a reason to be outside. But I began to hear the voice and the cry of the street. Who lived there before me? What was their passion and what was their dream? Where did it stop, and how can I continue with their dream and their passion? Well, then in 2004, the Salvation Army was competing for the Kroc Foundation to do a Kroc Center in Fort Wayne. And on the front page of the newspaper, it stated what the mission of the Salvation Army was, which was to make a presence of Jesus Christ in every neighborhood across the city. And I thought, I can do that. And that was kind of a jump start. And then another one was my husband. I noticed after we were married that when he would be asked to pray, he would always say, Lord, show us the poor. Now, I always pictured the poor as being the rescue mission or the Salvation Army or just people in gutter, that type of thing. But shortly after that, we were delivered in our mailbox an application to become members of our neighborhood association. And so we joined the neighborhood association. And as a result of that first encounter, they asked me to be treasurer of our neighborhood association, which I was for 8 years. And so then that prompted me to begin to attend city council on Tuesday evening. And wherever I heard of a public meeting, I went, because I wanted to know who made the decisions in the city, and why were they made that way, and did they really know? And so I became aware that I was a vessel that God had perhaps chosen to carry his light into places just to see, to observe, and to report back.
And you do. You know, when I hear some of the things that she has shared with me, it almost makes me feel so ineffective in not being able to connect the way that you do. Because you have brought so many wonderful people to me. You have connected me with such wonderful people and ideas, and you brought the Crossing School to me. and I was able to support them. You brought so many wonderful people that I would never have met before. You truly are a vessel, and you and I both have had confirmation so many times that by saying yes to God, He makes big things happen.
Fort Wayne just has some beautiful, beautiful people. There's another lady I want to introduce you to. That's probably one of my pet phrases. Randy, I have someone I want to introduce you to.
That's okay.
But I don't know if you've ever met Marta, who started Project Mercy. And I don't think she knows of the impact she's had on my life, but I saw a brochure of her, and my grandmother introduced me to her. But Marta was the first refugee that came to Fort Wayne at the invitation of E. Ross Adair in 1976, because he was our ambassador to Ethiopia. And when the communists began to take over Ethiopia, she found out that she was probably to be slaughtered. And so her and her family escaped at midnight and came to Fort Wayne, started Project Mercy. And as I began to hear and observe how she loved her people from our country, I became fascinated by such a servant. And so you really need to meet her sometime, and she's in her 80s, but she really is feeling a call to do something special in the heart of our city, to show her gratefulness and the open arms that our city had for her and her people, and just an unbelievable story. And so I've kind of found that here lately that she's really become a role model for me, that I have seen that we as women have a calling to love people and to demonstrate that passion and to help people find a purpose. And that is something I really have seen in you. And I just want to thank you for what you've meant to me through the networking, because that's kind of what we as women do the best.
We do connect.
Just kind of like making, and what I see the networking groups is kind of like a net underneath the city, that we catch those things that some people disregard or just don't see or don't think is important or just don't have time to deal with. But through the networking groups, I have just really been blessed, because I saw people with a like passion of mine, and we really are. We call it networking, but it really is net making.
It really is net making. You know, I like that. And I think there is a big difference between, you know, networking and nonprofit networking. I think that does make a big difference. It has a different crowd, but if that's what it took to draw you, then I know God was in it, so it makes me very happy. It really does. Marta, is she still in Fort Wayne?
Yes, she is. I had coffee with her at Panera Bread on Friday morning. Okay. And her business is out off of Ardmore. It's called Project Mercy. I just love the name of it, Mercy, Project Mercy. But yeah, she's in Fort Wayne. She does a lot of traveling, speaking engagements, and going back to Ethiopia. But she is currently in Fort Wayne, to my knowledge.
Well, I know that you shared with me one of the first times we talked about some tiles that you were all asked to bring together at one time. It was actually one big piece. Would you mind sharing that?
Yes, every year in August, the ambassadors or Black Hawk Baptists host what's called the Global Leadership Summit. And it must have been about 2010 that as the ending of that Global Leadership Summit, they took a clay pot and hit it with a rod and broke it into small pieces. And then they passed out a clay piece to each of us and asked us to write on that clay piece a vision or a passion that God was calling us to be a leader in. And I was aware after that conference that there were some key people that attended that, and that if each person that wrote on a clay tile was to lay that on a table, what impact would that have on our city or on our nation or on the world? And so I kind of was ignited to gather up those pieces. And I want to do that.
Well, and you know what? Maybe you're one of those people. Maybe you were at that summit. Maybe you still have that clay piece. Maybe it's time to put that pot back together.
Exactly.
But it does bring a whole different honor to the city. Just to have someone like you that is vigilant about following your heart and listening to God for the city of Fort Wayne. I want to do a little plug because I know that you and your husband own a Honda repair shop. And Scott White is, he only does Honda repair, but if you have a Honda and you want to know if it needs work for real or not, Scott will be very honest with you, and he'll be very affordable, but he'll tell you what you need to know. Thinking about buying a Honda, take it over and let Scott take a look at it. He'll tell you whether it's worth it or not. But in the meantime, get a hold of me or get a hold of LeeAnn White and let us know that you're interested in being part of this project so that we can bring the heart of Fort Wayne back to Fort Wayne. LeeAnn, there's so much more to talk about. We may have to do this again. Thank you so much for joining us. And this is Randi on the Road. Thank you once again. We'll see you next time.